Hi, Felicia. I'm Jessica.
Hi, Jessica.
So, what brings you here today, Felicia?
Um, I've come to you today because lately, well, I've been feeling this way for a while, but lately I've been feeling more anxious than usual, and it started to affect different aspects of my life, and it's, been really hard for me to get up and do things that I need to get done, and I just overall just end up don't doing, not doing it at all, just
So,
unmotivated.
yeah, what does the anxiety look like for you other than being unmotivated?
Um, it's kind of hard because I'm a type of person that likes to do things perfectly. I like to even when I speak, I feel like I need to come off a certain way or I need to say something um, that makes sense to other people. But I feel like I have more anxiety around perfection around school and work and home and with my friends. School because I want to do the best. I want to be I'm in school right now in addictions and mental health, and in my field, we're going to be helping a lot of people. And I feel like if I don't know everything, then I won't be helpful. So that's kind of why I feel like I need to be perfect um, in school. But it's really hard when I have so many assignments, and then other aspects of my life, like work. I need to work because I need to pay for school, and then it kind of leaves me feeling worn out and drained, and then I don't have enough time to talk to my family or to talk to my friends. So that's kind of, basically what I've been dealing with for a bit.
So, it sounds like you've got a lot of competing responsibilities. So, you have your duties at school, your duties at work, and then you also have your family and your social life that you want to be attending to. And you're making the standard for yourself that you should be the best performing in all three of those categories. And you're finding that right now it doesn't feel like you're doing that. Is that right?
Yeah, and I don't feel like myself because I've always, when I think about myself, I think friendly, I think very social, tries her best at school, organized, and right now I don't feel like any of those. And I feel like it's because I've been trying to push myself to perfection in those categories because I don't know, it's an unrealistic goal of mine that I've had for a while of just being perfect in every aspect. But I can't because even if I do remotely good in one aspect, the others are, struggling.
So when you put all of your energy and attention into work, for example, then school and family starts to fall a bit. Or if you move all of your attention to school to compensate for it falling, then work begins to fall. And how does that make you feel when you say things like you're unorganized now or you're not reaching perfection?
Feels like I'm kind of juggling a lot. It feels like I'm juggling knives, and if I miss up, then I hurt myself emotionally, I guess, or mentally. Like I feel overwhelmed, and I feel exhausted, and shame, I guess, because I haven't been doing well, and I haven't been doing my best. I haven't reached my goal of perfection yet. So also kind of a little bit hopeless. Or yeah.
Do you mind if I write some of these things down so that they're there for us to take a look at later?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
And you mentioned the thought there of you feel like you're juggling knives and that someone's going to get hurt. By that, did you mean that you feel like there's some pretty serious consequences for the actions of not reaching perfection?
Sort of. I just feel like everything that I'm doing is important, and so if I let one knife or one aspect of my life fall down or drop, it affects more than just me. Because if I drop work and if I slack off in work and I don't do my best at work, then my boss feels the stress because he needs to find someone to pick up my slack, or um, and then my coworkers feel stressed too. And then if I do it at school, if I drop school, then my grades are going to start to slip, and then I feel bad about myself. So yeah, just all three parts are really important to me, and if I let them, if I don't do my best, or if I don't try my best in all of them, then I let more than just myself down, which is really hard because I'm very much a people person and I care about what other people think about me, which also adds to the stress um, of me needing to do good or perfect.
So what I'm hearing is that not only are you setting these expectations of perfection for yourself, but you feel like meeting the expectation of perfection also reflects in what other people think of you.
Yeah, so I need to be perfect in order to please myself and others. That's what I kind of think. And then, but because I focus so much on being perfect, I let other aspects of my life go. Like I'm not doing self-care activities. I'm not taking care of myself emotionally or mentally because I don't got the time for that. Which then leaves me to have days where I don't want to do anything and I just want to stay in bed because it's just another day. It's just the same scenario of me not being able to meet up my expectations, and I'd rather just stay in bed than let myself down again.
So you're almost going through a cycle where you're super motivated and you're like, I'm going to be perfect. This is my time to shine in work, school, and relationships. And then when you're unable to hit perfection in the categories, you really get down on yourself and you're like, well, I can't do this. And so you let it all go.
Yeah, like I have sometimes in my life where like I feel like I can do anything. Like I can do these assignments, no problem, bang, bang, boom, they're all done. And then I can go to work every other day and like be well. But then when I start to think about, am I doing perfect? Am I being perfect? Could I be doing better? Then I start to think too much about that and I can't really get it out of my head. And then it has negative side effects. Like I just feel unmotivated and I just don't want to do anything.
So that thought of I need to be perfect, it sounds like it's pretty all consuming for you.
Yeah, it's literally basically all I think about. And I've had this thought for a while. Like ever since I was little, I've always noticed other people's being successful, and then I'm like, well, why can't I do that? Or, and it just stayed with me. And then in school, since I've been in school most of my life, um, that's where I kind of focused it on the perfection of being good in school, creating an identity of myself of being a good student or a smart person. Um, and it really matters now because what I'm learning is something that's really like I'm really passionate about, like helping others. But then I also feel like how can I help others if I'm feeling this way myself? You know?
I get it, and it must be frightening to think that something you're so passionate about might not pan out if you have these unresolved feelings inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to have gone through therapy and everything had gone well, how would you know that things were better for you? Or what do you hope to get out of therapy?
I really want to understand why, or like what happens to make me feel this way, why I feel this way. I also just want to be able to talk to myself better, I guess, because when I don't reach perfection, I'm always really down on myself, and I say like, oh, I'm such a loser, I'm a dumbass, like I can't do anything right. So learning to, I guess, talk to myself better or show a little bit more compassion towards myself. I think I need that.
So it sounds to me like you're your own worst critic and that you're the loudest voice shouting in your head.
Yes.
With the thought I need to be perfect, do you have any other like thoughts that go along with that or any imagery that's happening for you when you tell yourself I need to be perfect? You mentioned the if I'm not, then I'm a loser or I'm a dumbass. Is there anything else that goes along with that?
Well, like just overall, like if I don't feel like I did my best or if I did perfect, I feel like a failure. So usually what goes to my head is I need to be perfect or else I'm nothing or I'm a failure.
And I can imagine that that is a pretty daunting thing to have in your head, to be thinking that unless you're reaching this absolute perfection, then you're nothing. Because there's a lot of space in between those two ends of the spectrum. And to believe that you're either this one or this one must be pretty tiring, especially when you mentioned that it's really difficult to be perfect in every aspect of your life, and usually something's got to give.
Yeah, that's why I think it's an unrealistic goal. Although I know it's unrealistic, I still find myself trying to reach that goal anyways because I feel like if others see me being perfect or doing my best, then I don't know, it'll make me likable or it'll make me relatable or it'll make me just like a role model, I guess.
And those things are important too, because you had mentioned that you care a lot about how other people think about you.
Yes, I do. And like my family, they don't get it because they don't really understand what I'm going to school for because they don't really believe in mental health. So I'm kind of I kind of want to prove them wrong as well. Like, although what I'm going to school for is really hard and emotionally draining, like I could still do it. I want to be able to say that I'm doing good, even if they don't support me all the way. Although they do support me being in school, so there's that aspect of me wanting to do good to please them.
Yeah. And you've mentioned that even though it's an unrealistic goal for you, it's still important, and it still is ever prevalent in your life because it helps you to please your parents with school or to do well or to be motivated.
Yeah.
So, given the fact that this thought of I need to be perfect produces a lot of that symptoms of anxiety in you, you said, which I'll ask you just a little bit more about clarification. So, you mentioned that it was unmotivated was your typical symptom, that you wanted to stay in bed. Did you feel anything else when you're saying I need to be perfect?
I kind of feel it in my chest a little bit.
A little bit in your chest?
Because it's just like a heavy heart, I guess.
So like, not necessarily tightness or can't breathe, but just like a weight.
Yes, a weight in my chest. But I also feel the tightness and can't breathe whenever I'm in a high stress situation or feeling too overwhelmed.
Okay, so when we are feeling overwhelmed or high stress, then we got these feelings here.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I said, the I need to be perfect seems like a pretty powerful thought for you, and it comes up in situations with school, with work, with family, and it's related to all of these feelings about yourself, having the guilt, having the shame. Given that it's tied to your anxiety and your depression, I think that you'd be really suited to cognitive behavioral therapy. Did you know anything about cognitive behavioral therapy?
I've heard the name before, but I'm not really sure exactly what cognitive behavioral therapy is.
Sure. So I'm gonna go ahead and explain it to you if that's okay.
Yeah.
So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is a approach to therapy that looks a lot at cognitions or thoughts and then behavior as well. So you had mentioned that your goal of therapy would be to have a little bit more self-compassion and talk to yourself a little bit nicer. So that's an internal, that's your thoughts, and that is going to fall within cognitive behavioral therapy. So right here, this is the ABC model. It's the model that CBT uses as their approach. The A here, that's big fancy word, antecedent. It basically just means the activating event. So it's the event that causes you to feel a certain way. Some of the other words that you may recognize would be trigger, or micro trigger if it's something that you didn't even know was happening or you were aware of. So some of the events that you have mentioned for your situation was school, specifically with school performance. So I'm guessing that's something around tests and assignments and how well you're doing on that.
Mm-hmm.
With work, where you mentioned that you don't want to let people down because then your boss would have to have other people pick up your slack. And with your family as well, you said that you want to make sure that you're doing the best that you can for them so that they're proud of you and that you're meeting those expectations that you believe your family has for you. Mm-hmm. So those would all be considered events or activating events, and that's our A. The B here, that's belief. So the belief are any of those thoughts and feelings that you have as a result of that event. And so the main thought that you had picked out to me and that had kept coming up in our conversation there was, I need to be perfect. And because the statement of I need to be perfect is very, very powerful to you, we consider that a hot thought. And so that is a specific thought to you, and you had followed it up with, or else I'm nothing. And so that's a thought that is my bad. Feelings and behaviors are here. It causes you to feel that shame when something's not going to the absolute perfection, or the hopelessness you had mentioned. And as well as it shows up in your lack of self-care, or the unmotivation to get out of bed, and that chest tightness. And so all of those are feelings and behaviors that are a result of the I need to be perfect statement. The belief can also be imagery. So if you were laying in bed and you're saying, I need to be perfect, and you had pictured something along the lines of what perfection looks like or what failure looked like, that would also fall into the belief category. So CBT recognizes that the events are always going to happen. You're going to have things in life, you're always going to have school, work, family, or social relationships that are going to cause you to feel a certain way. And we don't have control over that. It's going to always happen. But it recognizes that right here, that belief and consequences are things that we do have control over, because we can change the way that we think about an event, which can change the way that we feel about an event. So the goal of CBT would be kind of aligned with your goal of therapy to talk nicer to yourself. That's what the B is. We work on self-compassion in that sense, and then we want to make sure that you're addressing that thought of I need to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to get you to do right now is I'm going to get you to write down that thought. This step is called externalization. And it's just so that you can take that thought out of your head, that thought that's been so overwhelming and powerful, and put it outside so you can look at it. And how did that feel for you to write it down?
It felt kind of weird because I usually just think about it, and when I think about it, sometimes I can brush away the thought, like whatever. But when I write it down, it's something that won't go away because it's physical.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more harder to deal with.
And it's right there in front of you. It's not something you can push to the back of your mind, like you're looking at it now. So you said weird. What does weird feel like? What's your body feeling like right now with that?
I got like goosebumps.
Yeah, you kind of want to like self-soothe because it's uncomfortable to be looking at that thought that causes us so much pain.
Mm-hmm.
You said that thought has been around for as long as you can remember. That it's always been something, the needing to be perfect and comparing yourself to others.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any specific event that had happened?
I don't really know. The event that I just can remember like the most is when I started high school. That first part of college level or university level courses first kind of triggered the thought of like I need to be perfect, because I was always in the college level classes, because although I did well in classes and got high marks, I still wasn't good enough at the university level classes, and it kind of made me feel really bad because, you know, most of my friends were in university level classes, and it's just the amount of work that they did or the amount of knowledge that they had, and I'm like, well, why can't I be like that?
So it was almost bringing about, not competitiveness, but like the comparison between the two groups of people and the almost goal to be at that university level of knowledge.
Yeah, and everyone in my classes in the college level like really didn't care about school either, because they were going into the trades or like they didn't really need to get really good marks. So it was easy to stand out in my classes in high school. But then when I got to college, everyone was on the same level, and it was a little bit harder for me to stand out. And then that just heightened the need to be perfect, because the need to be perfect in high school was getting good grades so I can go to college and do well in college. And then when I got to college, compared to my other classmates, I was not doing well. So then I kind of needed to be even more perfect. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
And for you, is standout in a class and perfect synonymous, or is standing out just helping you to reach perfection?
Standing out kind of helps me reach perfection, like participating in class, answering teachers' questions, doing scenarios with teachers. Like, that's something that I do a lot because I feel like I can learn the best from it. But like, that's what I need to do better. But then for other people, it just comes naturally. They just study and they understand it. But for me, I need to like physically go through those things that I'm learning, which makes it, a little bit harder for me as a student because I can't realistically do everything that the teachers are talking about. Or sometimes I don't have the opportunity to participate in class and learn that way.
Well, it sounds like you have really good self-awareness on what works for you, and even how you've been working towards perfection in a day-to-day basis, especially in the classroom. So that thought, I need to be perfect, what kind of positive impacts does it have on you? Because you've carried it for as long as you can remember. And so realistically, there's got to be some reason that we're holding on to that thought so strong. Do you have some ideas on how it benefits you?
The need to be perfect does benefit me in a way because it's kind of like a goal or like a direction. So I'm never really lost if I always have this goal because I could always work to better myself. It's also like hope. It gives me hope because it's just something to be perfect. It makes my heart happy when I hear like oh, I'm doing better. I'm one more step closer to being perfect. It's just I don't know. Yeah, it's just a goal and it makes me feel motivated to do things. But on the flip side of that, although there's some benefits to this thought, there are also more negative feelings as well, and those are really hard to deal with.
And what kind of negative? I know you mentioned that the shame, the hopelessness, the overwhelmingness of that thought. Any other negative impacts from this thought?
It helps, like it's troubling because I don't really have high self-esteem. So when I think I need to be perfect, I'm like, okay, well that's not reachable for me because I'm this or I'm that. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just like guilt, shame.
Guilt, shame, and you said it's impacting your self-esteem.
Yeah.
So, as you can see here, the thought helps you. You would not have held on to it that long if it didn't. There's also some pretty hefty negative impacts that this thought's having on you. It's making you feel really negative about yourself, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but earlier you had mentioned that it almost takes away from your ability to be able to perform it well in school, work, and in your relationships. So, this thought,
My bad.
and the goal of wanting to be more self-compassionate and talk to yourself in a little bit better of a way, this kind of talk can happen through what's called creating a rational response. So one of the things with CBT is we look at cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions are completely normal. They're just thinking patterns that we have that fall into general categories. Everybody has them, and you're not abnormal for having a cognitive distortion. Me personally, I'm really prone to shoulds and musts, and honestly, probably a bit of fortune telling. So I'm just going to get you to go ahead and look through this sheet here and just say what ones you kind of naturally use.
All or nothing thinking, I'd say. Maybe catastrophizing. Should or must be perfect and disqualifying the positives.
Sure. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark those ones off. So those ones right there. So with the thought specifically of I need to be perfect, which one of the distortions do you think, or more than one, is tied to that thought?
I'd say like all or nothing.
Okay.
Because like I believe I should, like, I need to be perfect, but if I'm not, then like I've said before, I feel like I'm nothing, or I'm a failure.
So recognizing that the thought isn't just I need to be perfect, but you've also had the flip side of if I'm not perfect, then I'm bottom.
Yeah, or just qualify the positives. Because although I do try to be perfect, I try my best, I try my hardest, but then I kind of almost brush it off like it's nothing.
So you recognize that for you, trying your best isn't good enough. It's number one or nothing. And so because you completely forget about trying your best in the pursuit, you're disqualifying the positive.
Yeah. I'd say that those two are the most relevant to my thought.
Yeah. I would even say shoulds and musts would fall in that as well, because when you're telling yourself, I must be perfect, that tends to create a little bit of guilt in you, because that's what a should and must statement does, is it makes us feel like we should be doing something else, and therefore we feel guilty when we're not achieving that. So this sheet on the flip side here, it has 3 columns. It's the automatic thought, the distortion that is within that thought, and the rational response. So the automatic thought that we had discussed here, we pulled out as a hot thought, was I need to be perfect. And you had already identified that with the statement, I need to be perfect, there's disqualifying the positive, there's all or nothing thinking, and then we had discussed shoulds and musts. What I'm going to get you to do now is try and make a more rational response. Rational response is just something that you can say back to that thought when it happens, to try and quiet it down, so that you can kind of challenge it or attack it back, so that it doesn't have as much of a negative impact on you. It's not going to make it go away, it's not going to make you feel 100%, but it can help you to just maybe bring it, dial it back even 10%, 5%, so we can start to make room for that self-compassion that you had identified was your goal in therapy.
So like I need to be perfect. I could say, like, although I like to do well, I shouldn't be so hard on myself when I'm not perfect, or I don't meet expectations.
And does that feel powerful enough for you? If you were to say that back to the thought, do you think that that would work for you?
Maybe. I guess I could make it a little bit better. Like I need to be perfect. Like, although I feel the need to be perfect, it's okay for me just like to make mistakes. I feel like that has a little bit more impact on myself, because like no one's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. I think just realizing that for myself is something that is going to be helpful, because like everyone, like humans make mistakes all the time. So just realizing that, hey, you don't need to be perfect all the time could probably help.
So I'm going to get you to grab your thought again there, since I noticed that you've thrown it on the ground.
I don't want that thought.
That makes sense. It's a very overwhelming thought for you. So your statement was originally, I need to be perfect. I'm going to get you to write your more rational response beneath that.
Okay.
So say it out loud.
Although I feel the need to be perfect, I should be more forgiving to myself when I make mistakes.
And that you feel like that will work for you?
Yeah, I feel like that will work for me.
Perfect. I like that you didn't go to the other end of the spectrum and say that although like I need to be perfect, and then moving to the other end of the spectrum to saying I don't need to care at all. I like that you found a middle ground and said that although I'm just telling myself I need to be perfect here, I'm recognizing that I should give myself a little bit more space and be kind to myself.
Because like work, school, family is all important. I don't want to not care about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want it to be a little bit less challenging.
Yeah.
His thoughts.
More balanced across the 3 facets so that neither one of them is experiencing a lack of Felicia. So on that note, I'm going to assign you some homework. It's nothing too terribly difficult. You're just going to complete the exercise we just did over the next week or until our next session, whichever is first. You're going to, anytime you have an automatic thought, that's one of those negative thoughts that's bearing on you, so something in line to that I need to be perfect, or any kind of negative thought, I'm going to get you to write that down in this column. And then you're going to go ahead and kind of try and use this side of the paper to figure out what distortion is happening in that thought, and then challenge yourself to make a more rational response. Does that sound doable?
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I look forward to seeing you next week, Felicia.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming.